Peace, fam. We are live again. Dynasty Mirror Search for Huru. Thank you all. Thank you for joining. Ebube should be joining us shortly. Hopefully, he does. He's more, I would say, in tune with foreign policy, especially when it comes to oil and gas, which was today's topic. So hopefully, he comes on soon. So we're gonna wait for him a little bit. If not, the lines will be open, and you're more than welcome to join the conversation and come and give your opinion and your thoughts on the topic at hand. But make sure you like, share, subscribe. Make sure you go to dynastymir.com. Tour Sierra Leone. Have about one or two more spots remaining. We'll go ahead and say two. So we have two more seats remaining. So if you'd like to join us, please go to Donfo. Again, please visit donfo.africa. Again, please visit donfo.africa. That's DANFO, DANFO. Let's see that. No, that's not him. That's DANFO. Again, DANFO dot Africa. That's it. Not .africa.com. It's just Donfo, DANFO dot Africa. Here's the site right here. Again, here is the site. By all means, please go and visit. Again, please go and visit the site. No, that's not him. Donfo dot Africa. So that's where you'll find all the details for the tour, how to pay, schedule, itinerary, all that good stuff, family. Like I said, we got about two more spots left. So, and guys, while you're there, make sure you go to community. Please go to community. Click on community. There's no reason why everyone who's watching this, again, if you're watching this right now, all I'm asking, like this stream, and then go to donfo.africa. Again, donfo.africa, and join our Telegram community and join our email list. That's all I'm asking for. Okay. Again, if you're watching this, because thousands of people watch my content, hundreds of thousands. Okay. I have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. All I'm asking, join the Telegram community, join our email list so you can stay up to date in regards to what's going on with Donfo in regards to the tour. So again, Sierra Leone, April 17th through the 30th. If you have DNA test results from African ancestry, which link you back to Sierra Leone, again, it has to be African ancestry, not ancestry.com, not 23andMe. I don't know the name of the other sites. Again, African ancestry. If you have DNA test results that link you back to Sierra Leone from African ancestry, you are eligible for citizenship. So do me a favor, hit me up, go to donfo.africa, and we will holla back. Again, we will holla back. Jomo, join the tour. Jomo. Again, Jomo, please join the tour. Come and join us in Sierra Leone. Again, come and join us in Sierra Leone. Like I said, the dates are April 17th. Again, April 17th through April 30th. Again, April 17th through April 30th are the dates. So please come and join us. Come and join us. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and open up the lines. If you'd like to call in, again, if you'd like to call in, link is in the chat room. Links in the chat room. Click on the link. and you are more than welcome to call in. Again, click on the link and you are more than welcome to call in. Once again, links in the chat room. You are more than welcome to call in. Click on the link. I don't know where Ebube's at. Again, not sure where Ebube is at, but hopefully he comes on soon. If not, we're just going to go ahead and keep it pushing. But today's topic, with everything that is going on in Russia, and I didn't know that, guys, if you don't, I had no clue in regards to the amount of, especially Europe, how dependent Europe is on Russian oil. Hell, how dependent Africa is when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, when it comes to wheat. Now, Africa, right, could grow its own wheat, but for some reason, we're heavily dependent on Russia and Ukraine when it comes to wheat, importing wheat. And Europe is heavily dependent on Russia when it comes to oil. In fact, the United States of America imports a lot of Russian oil. So I had no clue. Russia is a big player when it comes to oil. I had absolutely no clue at all. Which kind of makes sense, though, when you think about it, because Russia is part of Asia, right? Russia is on the Asian continent. And when we think of Europe, Europe has no resources. Like, what natural resources come out of Europe? What does Europe produce? If it wasn't for colonialism, imperialism, Europe will be a absolutely poor continent. There's no natural resources that come from Europe. So that it makes sense why Russia is considered Asia, because Russia has oil. Meanwhile, Europe has absolutely nothing. So Europe is dependent on Russia when it comes to gas, oil, and now with this war, Europe is suffering from it. Now, the media is making it seem as if just Russia's suffering from all the sanctions, right? So if you don't know, like sanction after sanction after sanction. Yeah, Europe produces cars. Okay, well, yeah. Sanction after, well, Germany does. I mean, no one's driving around and outside of German vehicles, Mercedes, Porsche, BMW, Audi, and then if you balling, high-end Italian vehicles, Ferrari, Lamborghini. I mean, nobody's really pushing no other European vehicles. I mean, European vehicles is limited to Germany and Italy, and that's Italy if you're balling. Now, I think there's a vehicle, that's produced in the UK, but ain't nobody driving that. Ain't nobody driving no UK vehicles outside the UK. What's the vehicle in the UK called? I can't think of it. Now, help me out. I see them sometimes in Africa. Outside of that, nobody's, the vehicles that are produced and manufactured in the UK, there's no demand for them. Like I said, when it comes to European vehicles, the demand primarily are the vehicles coming out of Germany. BMW, Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, Audi, Porsche. Is Range Rover back being produced in the UK? Because Range Rover, hold on. I remember for a second Range Rover was being produced somewhere else, but Range Rover is owned by. For a second, Range Rover wasn't being produced in the UK though, right? Or manufactured in the UK. Hold on, let me see this. In 2019, UK exported $39.4 billion worth of cars. Oh man. Okay, I digress. Range Rover. What else? So you got me with Range Rover. You're right, Range Rover. Let's see here. Land Rover manufactures new vehicles primarily in England, but their growing popularity over the past 2 or 3 decades has expanded their manufacturing to 4 other countries outside the UK. All right, somebody said Bentley. Rolls Royce is British. Aston Martin. Yeah, those are high-end vehicles. Like, I mean, I'm talking like everyday demand. Now, you can say Range Rover. I give you Range Rover. But when it comes to Bentleys and Rolls Royces and Aston Martins, I'm talking about everyday demand for the everyday driver. Because here in America, you know, you see your Mercedes, you see your BMWs, you see your German vehicles. But out here, you're not really seeing it. Any of these too many UK vehicles outside of Range Rover. You do see Range Rovers. You see a lot of Range Rovers. Outside of Range Rover, somebody said Range Rover is owned by an Indian company. Okay, so Range Rover owns Jaguar as well. I'm sorry, this Tata company owns Jaguar and Range Rover. Okay, Jaguar too. Okay, so Okay, all right. So I got to recap my statement. I see. Okay, I see Jaguars and I see Land Rovers here in America. Okay, so let me back up. I see Jaguar. I got it. I know it. Let me recap my statement. I see Jaguars and I see Range Rovers here in America. These other vehicles I barely see. You know, those are high end, but you'll see more German. Here we go. You'll see way more German vehicles on the streets. BMW, Mercedes, Audi, Volkswagen. Then you will see Range Rovers and Jaguars. So, yeah, but guys, links in the chat room. If you want to call in, click on the link. Again, if you want to call in, click on the link. Volvo is that's German. Volvo is German. No, Volvo is Sweden. Okay, I'm getting Volvo mixed up with Volkswagen. Yeah, Volvo is definitely not the UK. Volvo is definitely not the UK. But again, guys, if you're interested in joining us in Sierra Leone, go to donfo.africa. Again, go to donfo.africa. And guys, links in the chat room. Well, Range Rover and Jaguar is owned by an Indian company. Yeah, so Range Rover and Range Rover and Jaguar is owned by an Indian company. So yeah, but guys, links in the chat room. You're more than welcome to call in whenever you get a chance. Again, you're more than welcome to call in. Link is in the chat room. I don't know where Ebube's at. Ebube was supposed to hop on. I don't know where he's at. So we're just gonna get this party started without him. So again, bam, there we go. Sierra Leone. Yeah, but I think Volvos are still produced in Sweden. Again, I think Volvos are still manufactured and produced in Sweden. I think. Don't hold me to that. I think they are. Volvo manufactured. Let's see what they're manufacturing. Oh, well, they have plants in China. So China, Sweden, and the USA. Well, here we go. For most global markets, all Volvo cars are produced and assembled in Sweden. The plant in South Carolina here in America currently produces the Volvo S60. The plant in Chengdu, China is responsible for Asian market vehicles. So there we go. More than likely, your Volvo is coming from straight from Sweden. My Igbo sister, thank you. Igbo Kwenu. Onye Ukwu, thank you. Onye Ukwu, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, Brandon, go ahead and call in. Links in the chat room. Well, because of all these sanctions, they say like the gas bills and the energy bills in Germany have like damn near tripled. Wheat is from Ukraine and Russia because bread is expensive in Africa now. There's no reason why we cannot grow our own wheat. No reason why. Go ahead, Brandon. Unmute yourself.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. Hello.
I hear you just fine. Go ahead.
All right. So basically, no, it can't. African gas can't replace Russian gas because Africa does not have the logistical capability to transport gas across the continent. I mean, you got certain places like Mozambique and Guinea, Equatorial Guinea, that have some oil production going on. But when you talk about the amount of oil and natural gas that Western Europe needs, you need pipelines, you need trucks, you need roads, which I always talk about African countries developing roads. I mean, there's a reason why they're not, no one's already talked about taking oil and natural gas out of Africa in a major way, because just the transportation of these things, you pretty much would have to give Africa infrastructure. And if there's anything about European countries, they don't want to do that. They're not going to go in and build. They're not going to give Africa the means to become a economic power, right? So it would really put Africa in a good position if they did, but they're not going to do that. They could buy oil from America. There's a lot of other places they get oil, Saudi Arabia, Iran, different places like that. And Canada. Canada is the number one producer, like one of the world's largest producers of oil. And they have a really good, clean type of fossil fuel from the tar sands. So I don't think Africa would be up to the task. And also, you don't want to create a situation where you got a bunch of people who aren't African working in Africa refining their raw materials.
Well, Brandon, when I went to Nigeria, this was back, I think last year when I was in Nigeria, they had I met on this Delta flight from Atlanta. There's a lot of feedback on you, Brandon. I don't know why. On the plane headed over to Lagos, there's all these white guys sitting in Delta One and Delta Comfort, and I asked them what they did, and they said that they work in the oil refineries somewhere in Nigeria. So they're already there.
Right. Same thing if you go to the UAE or any Middle Eastern company. My wife's father, he was working in Saudi Arabia, out in Riyadh, at an oil refinery. He was a consultant. But I don't think Africa has the capability, to supply that much oil. Like even Russia was only supplying like 3% of the United States oil, and they were building pipelines from Russia to Germany, the Nord Stream 2 and the original Nord Stream pipeline, because even Russia in many ways lacks the logistical capabilities to transport oil and natural gas across Europe, right? And they're significantly more developed than African countries. I think African countries need to focus on fuel pipelines going to other African countries. And let me tell you something, Dinus, the most cleanest, efficient source of energy is not even natural gas, it's actually nuclear. And nuclear energy is what France uses. And if you look up the statistics, France has one of the best electrical grids, one of the best energy sources. You never hear about the lights going out in France because their entire economy, uh, their entire energy sector is powered by nuclear energy. So I really think African countries should focus on nuclear programs, which is what Iran is doing. Like you can run a nuclear, like the United States submarines, they're nuclear submarines. For like a 2-pound ball of uranium can power a nuclear submarine for like 300 years. It never has to come back to port. The only reason they come back to port is because they have to drop off troops and pick up troops. Now that's what we need to be working on.
Brandon, how would things be different if Biden shut down this pipeline? Now, what's the pipeline here in America? Help me out.
XL Pipeline, he already shut it down.
Well, if he did, well, I'm saying if he didn't shut it down, how would things be different?
We would
Because,
the
Brandon,
national
because
average.
let me say this, Brandon, because the argument is, well, that pipeline wasn't producing a lot of gas and oil anyway.
Well, black people are ignorant and they don't know anything, but a lot of us become experts as soon as a white person makes a talking point. The reality is the XL pipeline was responsible for a lot of energy that the United States was getting. And the XL pipeline is just the major pipeline that Biden shut down. Biden shut down several pipelines. He basically forced a lot of oil companies and natural gas companies to promise that they would cut production, right? They would stop producing natural gas and oil or extracting it. So what we understand is when Trump was in office, the day he left, national average on gas was about $2.28 a gallon at the pump. That was the national average. Once and 6 months after Biden became president, the national average of gas was like $3.79. And one of the statistics I love to show because I got it from CNN is that in November of 2021, California actually broke a record when it came to the average gas price in California. That was November 2021, almost a year after Biden became president, and almost 6 months before Putin invaded Ukraine. So what we know is the gas was already trending up and actually at record highs before Putin ever invaded Ukraine. So we know that Joe Biden, he's declared a war on the fossil fuel industry. The natural course of action for those companies is to raise prices because they want to secure the bottom line. That is a natural reaction when your industry is under threat. You're going to raise prices. So he orchestrated all this because he had to appease his moderate voters. And people think that this guy's going to like cure global warming. This isn't going to do anything. The only reason Biden is doing this is because he needed those moderate voters to beat Trump. And one of the biggest issues that moderate voters that decide how moderate voters will vote is the climate. So this was just some temporary bullcrap because he knows as soon as a Republican takes over, they're going to reverse all that.
Mm. Guys, links in the chat room. If you'd like to call in, please click on the link. Again, link is in the chat room if you'd like to call in and add to the conversation. Conversation link is in the chat room. It's the Keystone Pipeline. That's right. I don't know. I just forgot all of a sudden. The Keystone XL Pipeline. Now, Brandon, as far as them saying that this is going to mess up the environment, it's going to be a danger to the environment and destroy the environment, this pipeline, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, once again, we love to operate in the school of ignorance. How does moving a job from America to Egypt or to Saudi Arabia, how does that help the environment? You're still doing the same amount of polluting. Also, you're doing more polluting, because if you know anything about the way the United States extracts and refines fossil fuels, we have the cleanest refinement process of any country on earth. So if fossil fuels are going to get refined, you want them to get refined in America, where there's a high standard for keeping the environment clean. I think there was something like zero CO2 emissions coming out of 99% of the refineries and oil fossil fuel refinement operations in America. Also, we pull a lot of fossil fuels from Canada, who also has groundbreaking technology for the clean and low impact extraction of fossil fuels from tar sands. So it's almost like saying, hey, we're going to manufacture nuclear weapons. Okay, in America, there's all types of regulations and everything else that make sure that that's done in an environmentally responsible way. But you say, no, I want to save the environment, so I want to take these and manufacture them somewhere else. How do you reduce CO2 emissions? How did you save the environment? The demand is not going to increase, Dynas. Gas prices are higher, but people is still going to that pump at the same rate. So how does that save the environment? And no one's doing the serious breakdown of, reducing CO2 emissions, because what we don't want to address is, if you're trying to save the environment, why are you still selling cars that run on fossil fuels? If you want to save the environment, why are there still gas stations on every corner? If you want to save the environment, why are they still producing hairspray, stuff that's proven to put holes in the ozone layer? It's all fake. It's all lip service so that environmentalists can feel good about themselves for voting Democrat. But it's really not impacting anything. And I would challenge anybody in this audience to get on here and show me how doing the same thing in a different geographical location is going to save the planet.
If anybody wants to come on and challenge the Brandon, we're going to call him not Brandon, the Brandon. If anybody wants to come on and challenge the Brandon, you're more than welcome to. Again, link is in the chat room. Link is in the chat room. You can click on that link and you can call in.
I mean, they won't. They'll come on, and when you ask the straight questions, they'll start jumping around. Oh, Brandon, what about the moral ramifications? What would Jesus do? The reality is, just to produce a battery for a Tesla is the equivalent of driving your car 250,000 miles. So just one battery. So you can get a life. Basically, you got a car's entire life span in pollution is the equivalent of producing one Tesla battery. You can't make the materials that they use to create Tesla batteries without fossil fuels. It's impossible. So what I say is, instead of playing this little game to make like Elon Musk and different electric car producers rich, I say we just figure out a way to offset the demand. Give people monetary incentives not to get in their car. Like me, I bought an electric scooter, an electric little scooter. Well, I didn't buy it. Actually, I just jacked one off the street and my friend reprogrammed it for me. But anything I'm doing within 5 or 10 miles of the house, I just ride that. That saves me a lot of money on gas, and it reduces my carbon footprint. That's how you educate people. You educate people on little things they can do to reduce pollution. How about this? Guys, you remember when there were recycling centers down there on every other block in the major cities? Where did those go?
You got a point.
Where did those go? These guys don't give a damn about saving the environment. they're politicizing different issues just to get votes. And when somebody like Donald Trump comes out and tells you, look, guys, they're using you, there's no way they're going to save the environment. The Trump administration oversaw some of the largest advances in environmental responsible environmental ethics, right? Out of any administration ever. I'm talking about our pollution as a country was at the lowest it's ever been in history under Trump, and he was deregulated. See, because the regulations you put on the companies, that causes more pollution, because now they got to figure out creative ways to work around all these regulations. And it's a lot of time. Like, I'll give you a prime example in California. Okay, so in California, we now have a major rat infestation, Dinus, right?
Why? Yeah, because have you been to Skid Row?
Yeah, but let me tell you why we got a rat infestation. Because some environmentalist group did a study that showed that the stuff that we were using to kill rats, right, was killing mountain lions. People out living up in the hills, they would use this stuff to kill rats in their garages and stuff. And somehow the mountain lions would eat the rats, and that stuff would kill the mountain lions, right? What does that have to do with using that poison in the inner cities? Ain't no mountain lions in the inner cities, but they passed this law. All these environmental do-gooders passed this law outlawing this substance that they use to kill rats, that all these extermination companies use to kill rats. They didn't say you can't use this if you live in this area. They banned it across the state. So now when you go to kill rats, you have to use way less effective poisons and techniques, right? All because somebody was like, we're going to kill off all the mountain lions. And that's the problem with them liberal politics. It's all reactionary with no true understanding of the context of the situation. There's no mountain lions in the city, so it should be okay to use those rat poisons in the city where the rat population will grow exponentially, versus the country where 9 times out of 10, if you just practice good hygiene, and clean standards, the rats won't come into your environment, because rats, they go where there's resources, food and stuff. So take out your trash and put it in a metal trash can, stuff like that. But that's something that impacted all of us, because somebody tried to blow the whistle on something that really was relevant out in the rural areas of California. Now we have different diseases that we haven't seen in 100 years that are beginning to resurface because of the rat problem.
Hey, Brandon, before I left Cali, I used to feed the homeless on Skid Row. There was a bubonic plague outbreak on Skid Row. That's some shit from the medieval times.
Yeah, bubonic plague comes from rat feces. Bubonic plague comes from rat feces. When there's a super high number of rats and vermin, their feces actually, it gets in the water supply, and there's other ways where it gets passed around, and it causes bubonic plague. We got to have bubonic plague because little Miss Sunflower over here feels sorry for the mountain lion. And it's like, there are ways to address issues, but you have to pay attention to the context. And that's one of the reasons why the Black people, we love the Democratic Party, because Black people hate context. We just want things to be straight up and down. Oh, you can just go straight from point A to point B. Usually life is not like that. There's a lot of nuances and circumstantial situations, qualities that like affect the way you address something. That's one of the things I learned doing jujitsu. Force and strength is not going to always be the solution. Sometimes you need technique and timing. Black people don't like that. That's why we don't like sports that involve much technique. We like brutish things, you know. We like football. Hey, let's go ram into each other. We like basketball. Just put the ball in the hoop. But the ones who excel in those sports are those who who give attention to the technical nuances of those sports, and those are the ones who ascend to the greatest heights. There's a reason why Big Baby Davis ain't in the league no more, and LeBron James still is. You know, Kevin Durant is still in the league. Those people pay attention to technique, not just brute force.
Go ahead, Sekou.
Yeah, hi, bro, Prince Diners. Yeah, peace, and blessing.
Go ahead, brother. Something you want to add to the conversation? Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like I saw the topic about Africa replacing the gas supply. As the Russians having issues right now with Europe. I believe that's possible, but I'm wondering if we do have the infrastructures, because you know what is happening down there in Africa. Apart from Dangote, most of those things over there are controlled by European multinational companies, and there are no infrastructure really built. So I don't know how we're going to even profit from that, because it's going to, our politicians will give it out to the European companies to run it again. It's the same thing over. So I don't see how we're going to benefit, ordinary people going to benefit. Like Nigeria have been exporting oils for how many decades now, and you see what's happening. So for me, it's an opportunity, but I don't think we're going to still profit, because the leadership in power is not ready yet to give back to the people. That's my skepticism.
Dinus, you know what industry Africans should be worried about more than oil right now?
Go ahead.
I'm gonna give everybody in this space. You come here because you want to get put on game. You want to be at the tip of the spear when it comes to ideas. Microchips. African countries and African people need to start securing the resources you need surrounding the development of microchips. There's a good chance that China is about to try to invade Taiwan. If not invade, they're going to try to make it very hard for Taiwan to do business with the rest of the world. Like 80% of the world's microchips are manufactured in Taiwan right now. If Taiwan falls to the Chinese, that creates a technological nightmare for the United States. It also creates a cybersecurity nightmare for the United States and other Western countries. Whoever produces an environment where it's safe and secure to create and develop microchips, that place or that person will instantly become a multi-billionaire, because they're gonna have to find another place to develop microchips pretty soon. Taiwan is looking like it's gonna be removed off of the chessboard when it comes to Western-friendly countries in the South Pacific. So forget oil. Go after that microchip development. That's what's going to be the big money coming up here. You saw COVID. COVID disrupted the supply chain of those microchips. You saw they had all those cars that were brand new that they couldn't even sell. That was all because of Taiwan's situation with COVID and China's situation with COVID, because they didn't really want anything coming out of there because of COVID, right? Man, microchips, bro. If you know about computers, I don't really know about computers and stuff, but if you're a person who does, microchip development, man, that's what's going to be the big thing.
Go ahead, Abdul. Go ahead. And brother Abdul, thank you so much for the donation as well. Everyone, we are about, yeah, no, I appreciate it, guys. We're about $2,200 short in regards to the computer lab that we're building in Bo Sierra Leone. Abdul was kind enough to donate, and brother, we appreciate your contribution, brother. It means a lot. Go ahead.
All right. I'm glad to contribute, and I love the project that you guys are working on, and I really hope that it comes through.
Yeah, so everyone, if you visit Africa, in fact, I gotta plug it real quick. If you guys visit africapersonified.org, let me pull up the site, africapersonified.org. You can learn more about our foundation and the work that we're doing. in Africa. So right now we're building a computer lab in Bo, Sierra Leone, and we are about $2,200 short from our goal
Yeah.
when it comes to completion of the actual uh,
Can I say that the website was actually very beautiful and really well done? It was very smooth.
I appreciate it, brother. I try to, put my best foot forward when it comes to, especially when you're soliciting money. And guys, we are a nonprofit 501c3, so your donations are tax deductible. So again, if you go to africapersonified.org, you can learn more about our foundation and what we are doing, and you could donate via the website. All right, go ahead, Abdul.
Yeah, sorry, I'm in the process of getting my booster shot, but I'll just speak to you while I'm waiting in line. Just regarding the topic of the discussion with whether Africa can replace Russia's gas, I think absolutely. But I think what we also have to consider is that um, all the gas reserves we have in I can only speak on East Africa because I'm more well versed in that. There's a massive gas reserves in Mozambique as well as Tanzania, but a lot of those gas reserves are almost entirely controlled by a company called Total, which is a French company. So even though we do have those gas reserves, it's not entirely um, controlled by a local company
Abdul,
at all.
you mentioned Total because I see them all over West Africa.
They're everywhere in East Africa as well. It's a French company.
They have delicious cookies at Total. I'm always eating their coconut cookies.
Yeah, so Total have secured all the big oil and gas contract in East Africa. They've secured an oil and gas contract recently in Uganda. They've also secured an oil and gas contract in Mozambique. But at the moment in Mozambique, there's a bit of a civil war going on in the north because that's where the gas reserves are, and it sparked a little bit of a protest and riot and some extremism because the north is the most deprived, but that's also where all the gas reserves are. So at the moment, Total is not able to produce any extract any gas reserves because there's a bit of a civil war going on over there, and it's almost entirely because of that.
Yeah, for me personally, I'm not a fan of exporting resources, natural resources. The the plan for me, I believe in the plan that Diop laid out long time ago that African didn't follow in his book, the the economic and cultural basis for the United States of Africa. So he laid it out. He mentioned all the sources of energy we have in Africa and said, look, if you have raw material and you have energy reserve, the only thing you have to do is industrialization. That's the only way forward. If you have natural resources, you got gas reserve and everything, you look at how rich Congo is, nothing else you need to do. All you need to do is to establish power plants all over, whether it be nuclear power plant or whatever, have enough electricity and go ahead with industrialization. Once you do that, Africa within itself, we are able to supply within ourselves. Then we have a strong market enough to even start thinking of exporting anything to these guys. Because unless we start even trading within ourselves, whatever business we send out there, we are not going to benefit anything. Because look, the market in Africa, the Europeans set the price. And people don't know that the cocoa in Ghana and Ivory Coast, the Europeans decide how much it will be bought. The Ivorians don't decide. So that's a tragedy because the companies and industries are not there. And you want to give them the raw material and they decide. Like you mentioned, Total, the ExxonMobil, they are also there in Nigeria, they are in charge. You see, all these companies, this guy called Bolloré, all the Francophone country, controlled by one French guy called Bolloré. In the port and everything, he's in charge. You see, before you come, if you are a presidential candidate, before you win, you go to Paris and sign this deal with these guys. So for me, it's like we have been held hostage. So the revolution is not complete. I know we can do things individually. We are pushing stuff, but the political revolution that should begin Africa development has not happened. We are having middlemen in charge, and these middlemen are what I call Negropeans. They are connected with the European oligarchs to exploit the continent. And unless they are removed by revolution, you cannot do something tangible. You might try, but I'm telling you, Liberia, where I come from, is a good example. You know, we've been rolling around, turning around in one place. You see, we've not made any significant progress. The progress was there in the early, in the beginning of Liberia, but then it got to a point. You know, when we became friends of Europe and friends of everybody, then Liberia collapsed. So that's where it is until today. So this is the issue. I believe the supply of gas, even if we do have the market, even if Europe gave us the opportunity, it will still not change. Significant change will not happen. The industrialization of the continent is the only thing that will bring a significant change until we are able to process the raw materials, until we are able to manufacture these things. Like the brother talk about these microchips. That's industrialization. You cannot do those things if those industries are not there. You see, if we don't build those industries, we cannot. What stops Congo from building this industry? Why will one billionaire come and control all those quotas in Congo? So for me, the industrialization is the way forward. If anybody wants to invest in Africa, go towards industry. Anything, even if it's a soap you want to produce, even if it's a slippers you want to produce, something towards production is what we need.
Yeah. But I think with production,
let me just say this really quick.
And
So
then
much
after,
of what
after you go, Brandon, we're gonna pass it to OB. OB's on, and he's been waiting patiently. So go ahead, Brandon.
so much of what we talk about, we have this like weird blurred line between like capitalism, free enterprise, and politics, right? A lot of the things we complain about are the result of capitalism, but we think we're going to take like a political approach to that. And I believe that that's why that's one of the reasons why Africa stays in the situation it's in. For the most part, from what I know about Africa, African countries have this situation where if you want to start a company or corporation in Africa, you have to have, you know, citizens, African citizens of that country who are a part of the board, or they have certain percentage of the share in the ownership. What I really think the biggest thing Africa needs to do is just start competing on a, you know, on an economic level with these different European countries that come in. Like you were talking about the guy who has to go and sign a deal with the Bonero or whatever guy. That guy ain't the president of France. He's not a political entity in France. He's a capitalist. He's a economic entity in France. The reason why these guys have so much control over everything, I would argue, is not that the governments are selling out to them. Really, many times, they're the only people who are providing a reliable service in that country. Therefore, the government has to kind of yield or capitulate to what they want to do. I'll give you an example. Look at Safaricom in Kenya. It's a white-owned company. They provide internet. They have cell phone service. Guess what? All those other companies in Kenya who do cell phone and Wi-Fi service, they suck. So everybody is going to Safaricom because it's a better service experience. What will the African tell you? Oh, it's the European. He's controlling everything. Nah, the European is just in there competing, providing a better service than the lazy African companies who want to try to steal most of the profits and get money and give a cut rate or second rate service. And what they say when you say, well, why are you taking my money? Or when you don't want to do business with them, the first thing they're going to say is, oh, yes, because the white man's holding me back. Safaricom is not, there's nothing stopping telecom from being good. There's nothing stopping Airtel from being good. They're just lazy ass African owned companies who want to steal more than they want to innovate. Therefore, the white man comes in, he does good business, provides a service that is better than the service they provide, and then everybody wants to scream, the white man's taking over. There's nothing standing in the way of African governments passing legislation to make the economic market fair, many of whom already have that legislation in place. But if, like in Congo or Sierra Leone or wherever the diamonds are. It ain't the government taking those diamonds. It's De Beers. It's Zales. Those are private companies. And where's the African company who wants to rival them in the mining and processing of diamonds? No African country, because the guy who knows about diamonds, who's from Congo or from Sierra Leone, he's looking for a job. He ain't looking for it to innovate or build his own. He's trying to get a job with Zales so he can make a bunch of money. That's the reality, I think.
Hey, 1 second. OB, go ahead and add to the conversation. OB, unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Yeah. Man, I don't have too much time, so I'll try to make it quick. Round of applause to Brandon, just making very great points. I really appreciate how astute you can be, Brandon. You always bring up some great points. You really got to make a separate show on how the African community doesn't focus enough on sophistication, which is basically what he was talking about in the fact that we don't focus on technique. We only focus on raw talent and brute force. That's a big reason why we are where we are, because success means thought, it means planning, it means analysis. And it's also a great point that we have to compete in Africa. We can't just make substandard business and expect to move forward. But I wanted to just swing the conversation towards the general topic, which is about African oil. I do think we're in for a big windfall and a great opportunity when Dangote's refinery actually fully opens up. And that's because there are many other like second, third, and fourth order results of having a lot of gas production in our societies. And that's the creation of plastics, other materials. There are goods that are made. Um, yeah.
That's you done, OB?
I think it's me.
Sorry.
Okay.
Cut out. Yeah. I'll try to come back.
Sekou, go ahead, then we'll pass the U.S. law. Or go ahead, Sekou.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know what they are saying. You know these terminology I hear all the time. African are lazy, or African are competing, and all that. You know, you have to go beyond past this emotional kind of way of looking at things. Let's put things into proper perspective, put things into historical context, and look at the reality of what happened. You spoke of capitalism. You know how capitalism operates. For capitalism to begin in the first place, you need primitive capital from the beginning. There has to be a primitive capital, and the primitive capital European received in the last 500 years was the enslavement and the free labor that you gave. That's how they got the capital, the primitive capital. What primitive capital do you have to go into capitalism? You came into capitalism not by choice, but because it was imposed. And by the time you started capitalism, they were already having the primitive capital. They were already having, they went through the farming period, and then until they enriched themselves. You gave 500-year labor, and Africa was exploited during that period. So we came into modern capitalism, 20th century, 21st century. We came empty-handed, without any institution, and we started. Now, what's happening in Africa? The puppet government you have in power do not provide infrastructures. You are saying that Africans to compete. How do you compete? How many billionaires you have in Africa? How many billionaires do you have? You speak of Dangote. I'm coming. In Nigeria, you speak of just Dangote because he's closer to the government. How many independent billionaires do you have from the private sector that have nothing connection with the government? Very few. You have 3, 4 is done. Few billionaires you have in Africa. Compare the United States alone. How many billionaires do you have there? So we do not have even the infrastructures. Travel around, even roads. Even if you want to start a small business in Africa as an entrepreneur, you face a lot of struggle because the infrastructures are not there. There are no banks to give you money. I'm coming. It's not that people are lazy. The leadership has not provided the enabling environment for people to strive. Even if you want to be a farmer in Africa, your farm product will die on the farm because you do not have machines, you don't have industry to buy your product to process them. So you have to
Yeah.
sell them cheap in the market. So I'm telling you, the issue is leadership. It's not the laziness of the people. We have been held hostage by middlemen, African that have been Europeanized, that are in charge of our government. They are the one refusing. They are going through the World Bank and the IMF. And the World Bank and the IMF does not want Africa to industrialize. They want us to sell raw material. And as long as we sell raw material, we cannot be able to compete. We can produce entrepreneurs. We can produce companies. We can produce industries. That's the issue. That's the real. Then this issue was pointed out a long time by our scholars. Diop said it. Walter Rudney said it. That until we go for industrialization, we cannot do anything. If we don't industrialize, we will become what they call then the South Americanization of Africa. We become like South America, where we will just be turning in one place and we have puppet government and there will be a mass of poverty. And the South Americanization is what happened to us. It's not people that are lazy. It's not simple as that.
Yeah. Can I just add to the point of industrialization and also investment? I think even if you think about it in terms of policy incentives, most governments in East Africa, I can only speak for most countries in East Africa, they make the barrier of entry for diasporas to start a business extremely high. Like if you go to Tanzania as a diasporan, if you're looking to come back and start a business, they say it's like a minimum of 100,000 or 500,000, as well as in Kenya, as well as in Ethiopia, as well as in most African countries in East Africa, which doesn't make sense because it almost makes it as if it's exclusive to multinational companies that can afford half a million dollars to start a business there. It's like there isn't much of an incentive for diasporas to come back and start small to medium businesses because the barrier of entry is extremely high. That doesn't make sense for me because when I think about it, it's just like who's designing these policies and who's actually like benefiting from it, because the diasporas are not benefiting from those type of policies. I mean, the Dynasty, you can speak on West Africa. I mean, the barrier of entry for starting a business in West Africa in terms of government policy, what's it like?
You know what? To be honest, it's very odd. So, from my experience, French-speaking countries, it's easier to start a business there as a foreigner than everywhere else.
Really? Because usually the French try to make things very
like if you listen, being in the diaspora, being a foreigner, all you have to do is go to their CAC, is it Corporate Affairs Office, Commission of Corporate Affairs, or something like that, and the process is pretty seamless.
Really?
The other countries, if you're a foreigner, you have to find a partner, business partner. You have to have
very difficult,
higher capital. So it could be more of a
complex
process. And even if even if you're ECOWAS, so even if you have an ECOWAS passport, it's still the barrier of entry is still a little more cumbersome. But the French-speaking countries, Senegal, Benin, Mali, easy.
Sierra Leone, can you speak on that?
Sierra Leone, if you're a foreigner, you have to have a business partner. For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
But so like Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Ghana, if you're a foreigner, you have to have a business partner. If not, a business partner who's a Sierra Leonean or who's a national of that country. But for the French-speaking country, it's easy. It's easy.
Okay.
No, French countries are more expensive. Also, that's not true. My tour company set up in Senegal. It was
really
simple.
Okay. But can you explain how the Lebanese and the Indians get around those barriers?
They pay off a local and go into business with them. Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm like I scratch my head and think about how is it possible for like foreigners who don't even look like you to start thriving businesses in West Africa.
From my understanding, they pay off a local.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
Give them small equity and pay them off.
Yeah,
because you got to think about especially like a country like the Chinese. The Chinese have their own shopping centers in a lot of these African
in Ghana, especially they've got a big one in Ghana. I've heard.
Everywhere, yeah. But the French-speaking countries is pretty straight. It's straightforward and to the point.
That's so surprising because we've heard so many negative things about the French-speaking countries, But I didn't know that the doing business is actually quite straightforward. That's good.
U.S. law. Go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Hey, how you doing today, brother?
Doing
Can you
good.
hear
Go
me?
ahead. Yes. Go
Well,
ahead.
here's what I'm saying. I think the problem with Africa is still economically colonized. It was they stopped having these troops on the ground like they did before and actually holding cities. And when they left, what they did is put in place a system where Africans are tied all into their for instance, Africans are all tied into their internet services. You're tied into all their communication
It's
services
banking,
and all their banking services and everything. So what they're doing is if an Africans want to, and here's the way they control the countries. If your country doesn't act right, they got the real obvious things, severe things like sanctions. But the other thing they do is start screwing with your credit. A lot of African countries have a lot of debt. A lot of them came out with a lot of debt. A lot of Africans countries will still have within the top 5 things on their list. They have colonial debt, and which African citizens don't know. The other thing is they have these networks in place, and so think about Facebook, all these other kind of things. These are just intelligence collection things. So they know who in your country is having financial problems. They have all your communications. They have a center that was opened in Utah in Obama. Every internet search on the planet is stored there. So they know they have all this data on all your leaders. They know who's having financial problems. They know who's screwing around. They know who's cheating. They know everything. So, and they also have all these, like the AFRICON they put in. They have all these U.S. centers all over Africa now. These military, basically intelligence operations going on. So the problem you have is, so the problem that happens is with Africans, it's hard to extricate yourself because the whole system, you're immersed in this system that is designed to keep Africans as resource colonies. And then they have the other tools they use. For instance, they don't really care if an African president kills all his citizens. I mean, you don't hear them talking about when there's a war in Africa, like they do in Ukraine. You don't hear them talking about, oh, these people have a right to self-determination, all this other stuff. They don't care. As long as the African leader who's in charge will let Europeans do their certain way and play a certain game. And if they don't, they have coups and they have all this intelligence and they instigate coups and other things. This is why you've had 5 coups, maybe 5 or 6 coups since the Biden administration's come in. Every last one of those coups has Western intelligence fingers all over it. And so this, and then you also have some like the I think it was a Kenyan election they had before, and one in Nigeria. They were using the same companies that distort the election. I forget the name of the company, but it's out of London. They were using the same company to kind of trigger it to distort their elections that the Clintons and people use. So the problem with Africans is it's kind of like this. Africans are like fish in a fishbowl. You can have the fish that are fighting amongst each other, but what they don't realize is the water is being controlled by somebody else. And if you control the alkaline and different alkaline and stuff in different water, different fish can survive in the water. So the problem you have is you have this broader economic system, and while the Africans, the fish are fighting for space in there, the actual water in that bowl is being controlled by somebody else. And I don't know what the actual solution is going to be, but the first step is for Africans to become aware, because the problem is that if you got an African country, if you don't go along with anybody, it's even like think about when South Africa was talking about giving the land back. But really, they couldn't give that land back because right away, what they start doing, they start screwing with their credit rating, which makes them hard to pay their debt. So it starts affecting the whole
economy. They did that in Zimbabwe. They completely collapsed.
Right. Look at what happened. So it's not like you can just make a decision, because you can make a decision within certain parameters, and they have a whole arsenal of tools that they use, from starting insurrections. They already know because they have all this intelligence. You're locked into their intelligence systems. They know who's disaffected in your system. They know who's not happy with the government.
Well, they can play with the currency. They can play with the currency really well.
And they have somebody go contact those people and start funding them money. And then next thing you know, you have an insurrection, and they say, like in Libya, they start an insurrection and they say he's killing his people, and they go in. This is the problem you have. The problem you have is Africans are still locked into a colonial system. I'm going to leave the last example. And then these free trade agreements. These free trade agreements don't work for Africa. It's like you were talking about the fact that you have to have these high capital amounts to start businesses. I think in Ethiopia, it's like 200,000. Okay. And all you have and the problem you have is those things, you have to think about where that comes from. Because I got some friends in Ethiopia, and I was trying to set up a business. So you got to have 200,000 in capital just to set it up. Okay. Now
that's USD. Keep in mind, that's USD.
Right. Okay, so who does that do? That mainly makes sure the only people can generally come in are very rich people, like,
International company,
right. That's what
multinational companies.
that's what you've done. And you made the only foreign people who can really come in and set up there and set up a
Mm.
business and register that. Now you do have some. That's like Ethiopia. I know in Kenya you have to have. It's not a high capital, but you do have
It's
to have somebody
100K.
else.
No, it's still pretty high in Kenya. It's 100K.
Well, I've got a company set up registered. I just had to have somebody else on it in Kenya right now, so I
Yeah.
didn't.
But if
I
you're
didn't have
doing it alone in Kenya, it's still 100K.
but it's in the, and this is part of the problem. So these that's what says, and these free trade agreements they make. This is the other problem they have too. Whenever they make these so-called loans, the IMF, like one of the top guys at the IMF, what he said was the whole purpose of the IMF's their policy is to make sure Africans can never feed themselves. And that's really the policy. And if you look at like Ghana, they had a free trade agreement that they made with the European Union. The free trade agreement, when before it started up, Ghanaians were making more tomatoes than they could sell. They had huge tomato markets, nice tomatoes.
That's all imported.
Right. And when they passed
Yeah.
that agreement, what happened was they ran all the local importers out of business. Why?
Yeah, destroyed
Because
the local economy.
Economies of scale. You can't compete with them. So once you
Yeah.
say we have to take down our tariffs, you basically leave your markets vulnerable. Because
Yeah.
if you got somebody in Europe, they have these massive plants where they grow tomatoes, and
But
they
it's
have
also
enough,
subsidized by their government, and you're
well,
competing
and they
with
also,
someone who, yeah,
well, they also, and they have enough money that they can flood your market for 3 or 4 years, where you can get
absolutely,
tomatoes, a bigger tomato, probably
absolutely,
GMO tomato, twice the size, looks
yeah,
nicer, and you can get 2 of those for the price of one Ghanaian tomato. So within 2 years, they drive your market out. So these free trade
absolutely,
agreements are not made, and these free trade agreements are linking to financial agreements, like to your loans, your IMF loans, your other money loans, the loans you need to keep your companies
yeah.
going. They're linking them to the free trade
But
agreements, so you
but
can't
more,
get.
yeah, sorry. More importantly, those free trade agreements is not fair because if you think about it, those farmers in Europe are subsidized by their government.
Yeah.
They're all, and they're competing with local farmers in Africa who don't get no support from their government.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. And so for free trade agreements, and the problem is that they make you to get these loans. You have your financial system tied to them, and to get these loans that you need to run your government, okay, you have to sign these free trade agreements. And then they have all these other strings like homosexual, all this other stuff they stick in there, cultural stuff. This is why I'm saying I was listening to Ghanaians talking about Chinese taking. I'm saying no. Africans need an alternate source of funds. The difference between the Chinese is this: the Chinese don't come in with all these strings, and they don't interfere
Absolutely,
with your government.
yes,
That's the thing.
absolutely,
So,
yes.
and I was hearing people talking about, oh, the Chinese are taking over. Almost all these countries, if
No,
you look at the actual debt in Ghana, Chinese debt is like 3.5 billion they owe to China. People saying, well, the Chinese taking over, but they're forgetting they owe 31 point some billion to the Europeans. So I'm like, okay, but the Europeans are afraid. The reason they want you to be afraid of the Chinese is because they don't want you to have an alternate source
option.
of money to make a
Yeah,
better deal.
yeah.
They need to
And the
keep
Chinese
you locked
interest is
in.
much lower, and the Chinese interest
Right.
is much lower than the European one. Most people don't even
Exactly.
realize that. It's
They
like
give you
if you
better
think about
deals
it,
and lower loans. Yeah.
yes, exactly. It's like it's a pragmatic choice, and they don't really want to consider that. It's like the Chinese are giving a much lower interest rate than the IMF.
Well, and the other thing is this, and the Chinese they don't come in and try to tell you how to run your countries. They may come and
Exactly.
try to do business. This whole European thing is of causing Africans to be fearful and all this stuff about Chinese are
It's
colonizing.
Western propaganda. It's Western propaganda.
No, because the bottom line is, like I tell people, if you look at the African liberation movements, like in South Africa and the ZANU-PF, the African National Congress, you look at those movements, they were all supported by the Chinese and the Russians. That's who funded them. That's who trained them. They gave them all over Africa, the Chinese and the Russians. I point out the fact that even though Russians, they signed the Berlin Conference, they never took territory there. They were a signatory, but they never took territory. The Russians and the Chinese have never colonized Africans. But those are the people the people who have you financially colonized are scaring you with. Those are the people, the boogeyman. And that's, you know what I always, and this, I'm going to end on this. This is what I say is tantamount to, it's analogous to. It's analogous to a person who's raping you. Okay. And what he's always trying to make you afraid of, this other guy gonna come along with a bigger dick and rape you. That's all it boils down to, why he's still raping you. That's what it boils, and that's what's happening with these Europeans. They are literally keeping these Africans in basically an economic bondage, and they're trying to keep you afraid that so you don't have an alternate way to get out of it. And so, what Africans do need to make sure they make good deals, obviously, but at the same time, they need to realize that part of their way that they're going to get themselves out of the situation is they're going to have to outsmart these people and slowly move their markets toward independent. This war is liable to be the best thing that happened to. This, like the Russian guy was saying last week. He was saying this will probably be the best thing in the long run to happen to us. Russians already been getting prepared. All these sanctions are not going to really hurt them. They're going to take a ding out of them, but they've managed to figure out ways. They don't have all this debt going on in foreign countries. They just made their debt payment, and all it's going to do in the long run is it's going to start getting them off the dollar. It's going to hurt America and Western countries far worse in the end, because what you have is India, China, all these people looking at saying these people seize your bank accounts, they steal your money, they mess with all these sanctions. We have to make ourselves sanctions proof because they use sanctions as weapons. So what we're all moving towards is making our economies so that we don't have to depend on the dollar and stuff. Who's that going to hurt in the long run? The West. So the problem, Africans need to think the same way. You got to get off those economic and financial. So you got to get off the IMF and all those other systems that are giving you loans, the World Bank, because those loans are all structured in such a way that you will never become self-sufficient because your debt service to them is too high. I think I looked at something a while back, and in Nigeria, about half the GDP goes straight to Europeans, and that's in most African countries. So it's like you're splitting all your money. And by the time you service your debt and everything, half the GDP goes directly to Europeans to pay off your loans and stuff. So this is why they're having so many problems. And this is why you're having these problems in Africa. But at any rate, when I say go ahead.
Sorry. So I just wanted to wrap by just talking about some solutions that I've just brainstormed when we were talking about a lot of the problems. Dynasty, you can also maybe contribute to this, but for me personally, I think economic development is almost entirely I think diaspora can play a really good role, a very strong role, and a very important role. And I think there's a lack of a directory for diasporas to make informed decisions about which countries in Africa are friendly for diasporas to come back and contribute economically. That's one thing I realize that information is lacking online. That would help a lot with people going back again, because going back as a diaspora. Number two, I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. Contributing to the education system in Sierra Leone. I think if we're thinking about industrialization, we need to think about educating our brothers and sisters, our younger brothers and sisters in becoming more self-sufficient and becoming more educated, so that they could actually be the future of creating industrial solutions. And thirdly, I think there needs to be some sort of way for diasporas to network, collaborate, and find ways to do productive businesses together.
Well, I'm going to end on this. I think the other thing is ultimately we have to develop, for lack of a better term, our own secret societies. And what I mean by that, societies that are really dedicated to promoting our interest. And we're going to have people that are implanted in all aspects of the governments and all positions. And we have to do our own intelligence collection stuff. And we're going to all have to. Some of us we're going to have to be willing to die, because they're going to kill some of you, and that's got to be part of what you're doing.
For sure. But I think African Americans have the capacity and the capabilities to do that than any other diaspora. They have the most capital. They are the most trained in the best military or the best whatever. I think the African Americans need to play more of a role in coming back to Africa, but also taking charge in a lot of important advisory roles. Because I think if you think about it, as a diaspora, the African Americans are probably the best well equipped, and the only people that can actually deal with the French in a proper way.
Well, and the French are the most ruthless too. And if you look at the French countries, I mean, you think about the French countries. I mean, they're the most egregious, because a lot of these, you got 14 French countries, they're still paying colonial debt off. And you look at some countries, there are a few countries that their money, they tried to cover this up a little with a new currency, but they didn't really fix it. Their money goes directly to the French treasury. When you think about that, your money's going directly to it's like 14 countries. Their money's going to the French treasury, and then the French treasury is loaning them their money back. with interest.
With interest.
What kind of nonsense is that? And so this is the problem you have, is when you have this basically economic extortion going on, and it's going to really take some really educated minds, and it's also going to take the ability to be kind of surreptitious in how you go about it. In other words, you're gonna have to get in there and play the game. I'm just gonna end on this. I deal with a lot of people of different persuasions all the time, and you know what? And sometimes you have, when you play your hard cards with them, sometimes you gotta, you gotta pretend like you're going in one direction, you're going the other direction. You have to outsmart them, and that's what you're gonna have to do to get these people. You're gonna have to outsmart them. So that's the only, and they're not as smart as they appear. The problem you have with them is that we just, Africans and Black people generally, we are very trusting people, and these people are very calculating. They're 2 or 3 steps ahead half the time in the game, and you got to be thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. In other words,
sure.
Like when you make that trade agreement that got rid of tomatoes, nobody looked to see what the outcome would be, what the end would be for that. And Africans didn't look. In other words, they made a deal based on, oh, this is going to be good for everybody, and we're going to have free trade. And they didn't think about the impact that it's going to have on their markets. Within a few years, they didn't have a market anymore. And that's what's going on. And so for Africans to extricate themselves, they're going to have to slowly extricate themselves from this colonial system. It's a system in place, and it's a system in place to keep Africans as a resource colony.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Dynasty. Sorry, I was going to say, Dynasty, do you have like any projects or like that we could potentially invest in, like businesses? Because I think a lot of diasporas like a lot of the projects that you're working on, and they want to invest in business ideas that you are currently doing and be some sort of a shareholder. I think there's a gap in the market for diasporas to contribute to projects that are already on the ground, that are running, that have the capacity to be a more of a shareholder type business structure. And a lot of people respect and admire you, and I think you should maybe open up some ideas that we could potentially invest in.
Right now, my primary focus is on real estate and tourism. Tourism in Africa, I looked it up the other day. It's like a $400 billion industry, like something crazy, but we don't control any of it.
Yeah,
like we don't control any of it as far as
That's
tourism.
sad.
We don't control it at all. In fact, let me get the numbers correct. I think it was crazy, but so I'll focus more on tourism and real estate.
Is it structured in a way that you may accept investors, shareholders?
I apologize. It's 20. I said 400 billion. It's 24. It's 24 billion.
Yeah,
a lot, but we don't control any of it. It's 24.
Yeah.
It's a $24 billion industry, and that was 2019.
Is there a way for us to support your business? Is there a way for us to contribute, invest?
If you guys are interested, hit me up online. Send me an email, and we could talk. And I could share what I'm doing as far as expanding, and there's a way that we could partner. If you guys feel like you could play a role in.
Would be more of a silent partner, because I think you'd be dealing on the ground, and I think a lot of diasporas would be very happy to invest in projects and ideas that other diasporas are doing. And I think we should do more. We should collaborate more than compete with each other. I think it's important that we actually see a lot of the things that are happening on the ground as a win for us, because what you're doing is amazing, and it makes me feel like, okay, cool. Is there a way that I could, be a passive player?
And I'm sorry, I apologize. $169 billion.
That's wild. That's wild.
It contributed to 7% of Africa's GDP, tourism, and we control none of it.
Yeah.
So
how can we link you up?
Hit me up. Send me an email. hello@donfo. Let me put the email in the chat room. Send me email. We could definitely wrap offline. But email is hello@donfo.africa. So send me email, and we could definitely chop it up offline. But everyone, thank you so much for joining. Like, share, subscribe. Until next time, family. Dynasty Mirror Search for Huru. Peace.
All right.